Welcome to the Oncology Voice Network Podcast, connecting the voices that move oncology drug development forward.
Welcome to the Oncology Voice Network Podcast. I'm Dr. Kirk Shepard. This show brings real-world voices of oncology drug development to life. Leaders, innovators, patients, and partners who are shaping the future of cancer care. Preclinical research is where every breakthrough begins, long before a therapy reaches a patient or even enters a clinical trial. It's the stage where hypotheses become molecules, ideas become data, and collaboration can make or break innovation. Yet too often, the lessons learned here stay siloed within teams or companies. Today, we're joined by Dr. Jay Fine. Hi, Jay. Welcome to the podcast.
Kirk, great to be with you.
Great. Well, we're very fortunate to have Dr. Fine with us today, and he was one of the authors in our new book, Voices of Oncology, launched recently by Forbes. Dr. Jay Fine earned his PhD and throughout his career has provided strategic and organizational leadership in discovery research, strategic and organizational leadership, biomarker research to successfully advance more than 30 molecules in clinical development and cancer immunology and inflammatory diseases. Jay has had positions of increasing responsibility at Roche, Schering-Plough, Boehringer Ingelheim, and the National Cancer Institute. He's author of over 75 scientific publications and patents and has received numerous honors and awards throughout his career. He's currently president of the Research and Development in Evolve Immune Therapeutics, where they are addressing therapeutic challenges very important to cancer cell resistance. Jay, again, welcome. And perhaps I'd like to start with, everybody's always really enthralled with somebody who's as accomplished as you is, how did he or she get there? You know, what led you into drug development and oncology?
Well, thanks, Kirk. It's great to be with you. We're really looking forward to this discussion. You know, oncology it's so exciting. There's so much energy and the innovation that's been realized, the innovation potential is outstanding to address so many unmet medical needs that patients have. And I've been drawn to it from a professional point of view, and it's just so motivating to be able to contribute in this area. I'm an immunologist by training, and the advances in immuno-oncology over the last decade have been transformative for patients, have taught us so much about the intersection of how the immune system can be harnessed for the benefit of cancer patients. And I think that there's many more opportunities, much more transformation to come. And I'm really eager to be a part of that. And that's really what motivates me every day. On a personal level, my mother passed away from metastatic breast cancer when I was a young man. And it's had a lasting influence on me, and the chance to give back to other cancer patients through research and development is something that I really hope is very dear to me.
Was that, with the death in your family and your mother, a moment or experience that shaped how you see the impact of your work, or were there other experiences also that helped with that?
Well, I think it certainly was formative for me and very important. I still carry it to this day. But I think, generally speaking, during my work and my career in research and development, there's been so many moments that really have that I do carry with me. I can think of moments when our molecules that we've worked on very hard and created from scratch, let's say, have been administered to a patient for a first time, giving those patients hope. Those are very deeply held moments for me. And even better, when a molecule we've been working on is demonstrating clinical benefit. And really, what I've learned in my career is that the patient teaches us as scientists, as innovators, about what's what, if you will. That's a source of energy, it's a source of pride. It's also a source of very deep humility. And I think those have been, key factors for me in my journey.
Let's go to the book. When you wrote your chapter, what did you want your readers to understand about preclinical science?
It's a great question. I think there were really 2 points that we wanted to convey. I wanted to convey. First is that even in the earliest stages of cancer discovery and research and development, we are patient-centric. We are doing what we do because patients need new innovations, new transformative therapies. There are existing treatment gaps, and we hold it within our power, if you will, our skill sets to be able to play some role in contributing to addressing those treatment gaps. Of course, with many others, and I'm sure we'll get into that. So that's, I think, point number one. And really, I've been guided, my teams have been guided by who is the patient. And I think we have to hold that and use that as our North Star at all times. The second point that really we wanted to convey is that in the early stages of R&D, we're essentially map makers. We're charting new courses with new treatments, new therapies that really have, we hope, the potential to address these unmet medical needs. Again, we do this with a team. It isn't just a bunch of researchers sitting in a corner somewhere, working with a lot of other experts in the field of R&D and in medical affairs, et cetera. But we are map makers. We're charting a course. And that is something that I hope that came across as well in our book chapter.
And what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about the preclinical stage of drug development?
I think there still is a belief by many, maybe not all, that folks in sort of the earlier side, preclinical research, sort of work in that silo, in that quiet space by themselves, head down, and all of a sudden there's a eureka moment, sort of like Doc Brown in Back to the Future, crazy hair maybe. That there's a eureka moment that occurs in isolation. In fact, in my experience, the eureka moments, the moments that really might make or break discovery and development program, don't occur in isolation. They occur among a team of people, of experts, each with their own experts. In the case of preclinical, it might be molecular biology or pharmacology or toxicology, for example, but is working with so many other partners in clinical development and elsewhere that are really having, and it's the synergies that occur by working in a team that create those eurekas, which hopefully lead to breakthrough innovation for patients.
And let's talk about those teams for a minute and collaboration. I mean, where do you see the biggest gaps now in how scientists, clinical teams, CMC, medical affairs share learning?
I think that the complexity of oncology, and I think this extends beyond oncology, but oncology is probably the best example. The complexity along with the desire to move fast. Patients need innovation. Time is money. The complexity plus the time, I think that we can all do better in taking moments to capture lessons learned, to discuss what we've learned and communicate better. And I think we almost self-create communication gaps, if you will. And I think those are slowing progress. Those can slow progress. I think those gaps are perhaps where we're missing potential innovations or potential connections. And ultimately, if the name of the game is developing insights in order to push toward those breakthrough therapies, I think those are areas where those gaps can be rectified and we can do better.
So if oncology had a true cross-functional community like OVN is trying to establish, where lessons and failures could be shared openly, what would change for scientific progress in patients?
I think it's a great question. My initial response to your question is, I think we need to have sort of cross-functional intentionality. We have to recognize that these gaps exist, and we have to recognize them in the fog of whatever we're doing as we're trying to push forward innovations. And I think that if we had this cross-functional intentionality, we would take these moments to collect, to develop these synergies, And these would improve the prioritization of which drugs move forward, what trials to do, perhaps trial design, and ultimately lead to better decision making along the journey or along the axis of drug discovery development. And I think that would be for the betterment of innovation and ultimately for the betterment of patients.
Where do the most of the early programs often succeed or fail?
I think the field and certainly I and working with my teams always see that there's some certain fundamental precepts that are really critical in the early phase. We have to have the right mechanism of action for the right patient at the right dose or exposure in order to modulate the pathway or the target in a way that will have benefit on the disease. And we have to have a clear hypothesis for differentiation. All of those are required. If any of them are missing, it really puts the early stage clinical program at risk. And ultimately, for a program or a project that is best in class, there are already learnings perhaps from others, and some of those precepts can be filled in at the start. But if it's a novel target or a novel modality, there's a lot to learn along the way. And we're all trying to learn everything very quickly and make the right decisions. But again, this is where I think it's imperative that we have a cross-functional setting where we can collect our thoughts, take the time to identify the synergies and the opportunities in a more holistic way, and I think ultimately make better decisions.
You know, Jay, that seemed to be a recurring theme throughout all the experts, as we had, as you know, over 30 experts who were interviewed, and all of them said, this does not occur early enough, and in collaboration with the rest of our partners. And this especially becomes centered with you as far as discovery and where it all starts. I mean, that's really where collaboration has to have a good start, or it's not going to happen. I wonder if we could switch now to the patient, which you really, I think, covered well in your chapter. How do these early scientific decisions, such as biomarkers, safety, dosing, data, shape the patient access and outcomes later in development?
Clearly, that we need to get it right in early stage development and have a clear sense of what the drug can do and what the drug cannot do. And that paves the way for the right registrational trial and ultimately the right reimbursement scheme and access scheme upon approval, if a drug is fortunate enough to get that far. So I think all of these pieces, the biomarkers that you mentioned, the aspects that I mentioned earlier, all are integrated into an early development program to allow for the right decisions to shape that later stage development and ultimately create access for the patient to a potentially transformative drug.
Yeah, I mean, this is a potentially complex process. How do you bring all these partners together early to talk about patient needs when there's so much other stuff to be done? I mean, do you think the main problems are resourcing money to do that, or some of the scientists or people feel like, I don't want to be bothered, just leave me alone until I get to a certain stage? What are the main reasons why that's not happening, do you think?
I don't think it's fair to say it doesn't happen. I think it has to happen more frequently and more consistently. I think, in many of the situations I've been, many of the companies I've been in, there have been cross-functional teams that are doing their very best. But the complexity that I mentioned earlier requires a lot of focus. You end up putting your head down sometimes, perhaps maybe too frequently, in order to get done what's right in front of you. And I think sometimes you have to step back. I think by and large, teams, particularly in the large biopharma I've been in, have been pretty good at working in a concerted way and in a cross-functional way. But I still think there's room for improvement. And are we truly taking advantage of all the technology and all the information that we have and translating observations into data and data into those key insights that are going to make a difference for ultimately the drug's trajectory? I think that's where we can do better, and we must be more consistent. I think that topics like patient heterogeneity, disease heterogeneity, is so difficult. Even today, we really can't, in most cases, there are some exceptions, predict which patients are going to respond and which patients might have a toxicity, a life-altering toxicity. There's insights to be gathered from large data sets, and that's certainly an area There's a lot of attention, as you know. But I think the more complexity, the more we're talking about large things, the more we do need to pull back, take some time, and nurture these cross-functional collaborations and environments so that we can really take advantage of insights that we have and develop more insights, and then ultimately translate that into benefits for patients.
And so we don't leave certain subgroups of patients behind. And sometimes we're accused of doing that because of our eligibility criteria or even our trial design. What needs to change to make sure that does become more inclusive and that we do have a balanced approach to our designs?
Yeah, I think compared to maybe 10 years ago, there's more recognition, I guess is the word, of the impacts of disease heterogeneity on how we choose patients for trials, what the eligibility criteria are. I always wonder whether we're doing ourselves a massive disservice by just going broad all the time. Certainly in some cases, for example, the drugs that have come on board recently that are making a real difference for patients that target actionable genomic alterations, we can predict the patients who are more likely to respond, let's say. But in, for example, the immuno-oncology space, we still don't know which patients will show durable responses, even though 30% of the patients in the trials do with the current IO standards of care. So I think that we need to take a harder look at what we're really trying to achieve. I think sometimes by virtue of trying to always capture broad populations, we're leaving some good drugs in the dirt, maybe. They don't turn out as well as we would like them. The results aren't as unimpeachable as we would like them to be. I think that we are recognizing that what we call cancer of a particular tissue may be 10 or even 100 different subtypes of disease based on genetics, based on environment, based on treatment history. I think we have to do a better job in parsing the biology of disease. And I think progress is being made, but there's always more we can do. And I don't think we should have a one-size-fits-all with regard to eligibility criteria. Certainly, there may be efficiencies in terms of trial design that folks are starting to speak about, but may not be being used as actively or as frequently as they might be, utilizing real-world evidence, perhaps facilitated by artificial intelligence approaches in lieu of control groups. You can imagine the opportunity that might be to save costs and to shorten trial duration. Sharing control groups might be, in a consortium of sorts, maybe another approach that can really make a benefit for how we conduct things and maybe result in efficiencies that will on cost as well as on time. I think transparency on which sites we choose, maybe if it's can be called this a pre-competitive way, might, although that's probably not the right word to use, may enable us to gain efficiencies and do better trials more quickly.
So we're back to exchange of ideas, transparencies, collaboration. If pharma and biotech learned in a shared space, let's say we're talking about theoretically what OVN could be, openly exchanging real lessons, the failures, the breakthroughs, would that be a major change, do you think, for oncology drug development? I mean, what do you see as the pros of that and perhaps the challenges that we'll face?
Well, I think that first and foremost, yes, the short answer is yes. I think opportunities to create cross-functional environments are so precious and can be so powerful. And I think that combined with what I referred to earlier as intentionality, that we have to say, this is what we're going to do. This is too important not to do it. And we all have to come together with energy, enthusiasm, and conviction. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for a network like OVN to make a real difference in terms of shared ideas, in terms of concepts around perhaps data accessibility in different ways, in different platforms, and really to break the mold. I think we're used to operating in a certain way, probably for some very good reasons, but also some not so good reasons. As we've learned, patients are waiting. We can't afford not to do this. We can't afford not to have these types of networks.
You know, part of the book, of course, was going outside of pharma, of going to the external communities, et cetera. And we did include a number of chapters, such as the clinician, academic clinician, the patients, patient advocacy groups, et cetera. This is one advantage we may have with OVN, going beyond industry alone and inviting those partners to give us a more persistent, constant reminder of why we're in this business. So, I mean, is that something there, do you see, that would be a particular advantage beyond what we have now? Because I don't know where that takes place.
I don't think it does, or it occurs in isolated venues and isolated situations, perhaps driven by particular companies in relationship to their strategies. And there is a competitive advantage for companies or institutions to perhaps work in bite-sized chunks for what toward their strategies and for their competitive advantage. But cancer is such a profound area where we've all been affected by family members or friends or folks in our community who have suffered from cancer. We must bring the power of all the points of view to create the right types of synergies. It isn't just pharma people or scientists. It isn't just commercial folks. I think bringing investigators from academic institutions, for example, thought leaders, and that's done on some level, but to bring them in a more concerted way. The payers are increasingly a large part of these types of needs, let's say, and I think those are areas where we need to bring in people. Policymakers, I think there's a real opportunity for OVN as a platform to be a consolidator, to be an integrator of these disparate subject matter stakeholders, experts and stakeholders, to help make a difference in such a area of profound unmet need.
Well, Jay, I thank you for your passion and excitement as far as your chapter, as far as what you wrote. And I was very excited when going around to all these experts and asking if they would want to be an author like I did with you. And every one of them said, yes, this should have been done before. And even in the aftermath now, the book of it recently being released, we have everybody saying, well, is that it? The book. I mean, not everybody's going to read the book. And that's part of the principle of OVN, is getting people like you, myself, others, to discuss these issues and make the book come alive as far as all these partners that are part of the book's chapters. So again, thank you so much for your contribution to the book. Thank you also for this wonderful discussion today on our podcast.
Kirk, thank you so much. Looking forward to OVN becoming a premier network for the entire community, and happy to do my part.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Kirk Shepard. Thanks for listening and for being a part of the conversation that's moving oncology forward.